It was a new kind of land empire, forged not on open plains, but in the factories and war rooms of a resurgent Germany. Imagine a military force so revolutionary, it could conquer nations in mere weeks, stretching from the fields of Poland to the heart of France, and from the Low Countries to the Balkans. This was the age of Blitzkrieg. In the aftermath of World War I, while other nations clung to outdated doctrines of static trench warfare, a radical new concept was taking shape in German military thought. Much like Temujin, who rose from obscurity to forge the Mongol Empire, visionary German commanders sought to revolutionize warfare itself. This wasn't about slow, grinding attrition, the kind that had bled Europe dry in the trenches. Blitzkrieg was about speed, decisive action, and the psychological shock of the unexpected. Like Genghis Khan promoting soldiers based on merit, these innovators prioritized agility, adaptability, and ruthless efficiency. They called it Blitzkrieg, lightning war, a name that echoed its terrifying speed and suddenness. Imagine the defenders, expecting a slow, methodical advance, suddenly facing a torrent of tanks and aircraft, tearing through their lines like a hot knife through butter. Germany in the interwar years, constrained by the Treaty of Versailles, was seemingly weak. But like the Mongol tribes, initially scattered and fractured, Germany was secretly rebuilding, innovating, and preparing to unleash a force unlike any the world had seen before. Just as Genghis Khan scattered conquered nomads among his own soldiers to prevent rebellion and foster unity, German military thinkers integrated new technologies and tactics into a cohesive whole. They learned the brutal lessons of the Great War, not to repeat its failures, but to transcend them. While the world still prepared for a war of trenches and attrition, Germany was poised to unleash a storm of steel and fire, coordinated with unprecedented precision and speed. A storm that would not just redraw battle lines, but shatter nations and redefine warfare itself. Like the Mongol belief in Tengri's divine mandate to conquer, a similar, though far darker, ambition fueled the Blitzkrieg. They believed this new form of warfare was not merely a strategy, but an unstoppable force, destined to deliver swift and total victory. But what were the secrets of Blitzkrieg? It wasn't just tanks and Stukas. It was a meticulously orchestrated system, a deadly combination of tactics, technology, and ruthless execution. Over the next minutes, we will dissect this devastating doctrine and witness its terrifying power unleashed. From the invasion of Poland to the fall of France, Blitzkrieg would carve a bloody swath across Europe, leaving a trail of conquered nations and shattered armies in its wake. Prepare to witness how Germany, in a matter of weeks, conquered a continent and changed the face of war forever. Blitzkrieg wasn't just brute force, it was a deadly elegant system, a precisely orchestrated dance of destruction. Like the Mongol armies, famed for their discipline and battlefield coordination, Blitzkrieg was built on the seamless integration of every fighting arm, a military concerto of steel and fire. The Panzer Division was the star of this deadly show. Envision them as the Mongol heavy cavalry, the armored fist designed to shatter enemy lines. But instead of charging on horseback, they surged forward in steel chariots, Panzer tanks, the iron spearhead of the Blitzkrieg assault. These were no ordinary tanks. German panzer designs prioritized speed and agility, enabling them to outmaneuver and encircle slower, heavier enemy armor. Like the legendary Mongol composite bow, with its superior range and power, panzer technology gave the Germans a crucial, asymmetric advantage on the battlefield. But the panzers were not lone wolves. Dominating the skies was the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, an indispensable partner in the Blitzkrieg ballet. Imagine them as the Mongol scouting parties, but instead of mere reconnaissance, they unleashed a rain of fire and terror from above. The Stuka dive bomber, with its screaming siren, was a weapon of psychological as well as physical destruction. Its pinpoint bombing shattered enemy defenses and crushed morale, paving the way for the panzer onslaught. It was the aerial equivalent of a Mongol aerostorm, amplified 100-fold. Orchestrating this complex dance of destruction was radio communication. Like the Mongol YAM system, which enabled rapid communication across their vast empire, radio allowed Blitzkrieg commanders to direct their mobile forces with unprecedented speed and flexibility. Command and control in real time, a revolutionary concept. Blitzkrieg wasn't about rigid formations and predictable assaults. It was fluid, adaptable, and brutally opportunistic. It thrived on bypass tactics, striking at the enemy's weakest points, outflanking fortified lines, and then enveloping entire armies. Like Mongol feigned retreats and lightning ambushes, deception and maneuver were paramount, raised to an art form. Imagine the Allied soldier's nightmare, One moment, a deceptive lull. The next, a relentless avalanche of steel and air power erupting from the horizon, bypassing their strongest defenses and tearing into their vulnerable rear. Chaos, disintegration, and collapse were often inevitable. Combined arms, Panzer Divisions, Luftwaffe dominance, radio communication, bypass tactics, these were the pillars of the Blitzkrieg doctrine. Each element amplified the others, creating a synergistic force multiplier, a military innovation far exceeding the sum of its parts. It was, in essence, a revolution in the art of war. Blitzkrieg was warfare redefined, the pursuit of total and rapid victory through speed, shock, and relentless aggression. Its aim: to shatter the enemy's will to resist before they could even fully mobilize. A terrifyingly effective doctrine poised to unleash its fury upon an unsuspecting Europe, rewriting the rules of conflict in blood and fire. Blitzkrieg wasn't solely about brilliant tactics, it was supercharged by groundbreaking technology. Just as the Mongols mastered horseback warfare and the composite bow, Germany weaponized the industrial age, forging a technological arsenal as revolutionary in its time as Genghis Khan's military innovations were centuries before. Spearheading the Blitzkrieg was the Panzer, the German battle tank. Imagine it as the Mongol warhorse, now clad in steel and spitting fire. Unlike the slow, trench-bound tanks of World War I, Panzers were engineered for velocity, reliability, and brutal offensive power. They were the very embodiment of mobile, mechanized warfare. Early Panzers, like the Panzer I and Panzer II, weren't behemoths of armor or firepower. But like the initial waves of Mongol light cavalry, swift, numerous, and adaptable, they were designed for speed and reconnaissance, probing enemy lines and creating the crucial breaches for heavier forces to exploit. The Panzer III and Panzer IV, however, were the true muscle of the Blitzkrieg. These became the equivalent of the Mongol heavy cavalry, the hammer blow. With significantly enhanced armor and increasingly potent guns, they were built to dominate the battlefield, engaging and destroying enemy tanks and fortifications head-on. From the skies, the Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bomber was a technological terror weapon, unlike anything before. Its screaming siren, a psychological weapon in itself, coupled with its near-pinpoint accuracy, was designed to paralyze enemy defenses and sow absolute chaos. It was the 20th century successor to the Mongol siege engines, delivering fear and destruction from above. Radio technology was the nervous system of Blitzkrieg. Like the Mongol Yam courier network that bound their vast empire, radios provided German commanders with instantaneous communication with their rapidly advancing units. This real-time command and control was the crucial ingredient for Blitzkrieg's unprecedented speed and flexibility. Crucially, Blitzkrieg demanded motorized infantry and logistics. Unlike armies tethered to slow-moving horse-drawn supply wagons, Germany motorized its support columns to match the blistering pace of the panzers. This logistical revolution was akin to the Mongol army's ability to live off the land, enabling sustained, deep penetrations into enemy territory without losing momentum. These technological components, the panzer, the Stuka, radio, and motorization, were individually impressive, but their true power lay in their synergy. Like the diverse units of the Mongol army working in perfect concert, they formed a unified, devastating instrument of war, meticulously engineered for the shock and speed of Blitzkrieg. Germany's technological gamble, meticulously planned and ruthlessly executed, paid off in the early years of World War II with terrifying speed and efficiency. These innovations allowed them to achieve battlefield victories that defied expectations and shattered the established doctrines of warfare. But technology, however advanced, tells only part of the story. Tactics, rigorous training, and bold leadership were equally vital cogs in the Blitzkrieg machine. But it was this unprecedented technological edge that provided the raw power, the lightning strike capability, that allowed Blitzkrieg to tear across Europe and leave the world in awe and terror. They were the engines driving the lightning war. The year was 1939. Europe held its breath, unaware of the tempest about to break. Like Genghis Khan unleashing his Mongol war machine upon unsuspecting kingdoms, Germany prepared to unleash Blitzkrieg upon Poland, the first act in a drama of conquest that would reshape the continent. September 1, 1939, the day the lightning struck, Blitzkrieg was unleashed. Panzer Divisions, the iron fists of the Wehrmacht, smashed into Poland, spearheaded by the most advanced tanks of their time. Overhead, the Luftwaffe descended like a steel hawk, unleashing waves of aerial terror. Poland's valiant defenders, fighting with courage and resolve, were tragically unprepared for this new paradigm of warfare. Their armies, rooted in traditional doctrines, were like foot soldiers facing Mongol cavalry, brave but outmatched, outmaneuvered, and technologically eclipsed. Within days, the Polish front crumbled. Panzer Divisions, masters of maneuver, bypassed static defenses, encircled entire Polish armies, and plunged deep into the nation's heartland. The Luftwaffe owned the skies, crippling communication and sowing panic in the ranks of the defenders. Poland was being dissected alive, at breathtaking speed. Warsaw, the proud capital, became a symbol of Polish defiance, and a testing ground for Blitzkrieg's brutal efficiency. Relentless Luftwaffe bombing turned the city into an inferno, reminiscent of Mongol sieges reducing cities to rubble. But even amidst the devastation, Polish resistance flickered. Just over a month, that's all it took. Poland, a nation of millions, was conquered, shattered, and occupied. Blitzkrieg had delivered its maiden victory, a terrifying spectacle that sent shockwaves across the globe. But the most audacious act of Blitzkrieg was yet to come. 1940. The year Blitzkrieg turned its gaze westward, towards France. The Maginot Line, a colossal chain of fortresses, was deemed impregnable, a bulwark against invasion. But Blitzkrieg was not about brute force assaults on strongpoints. It was about outwitting, outflanking, and rendering defenses irrelevant. Like the Mongols finding hidden paths through mountains and deserts to outflank their enemies, German strategists conceived a daringly audacious plan. A Blitzkrieg thrust through the Ardennes forest, terrain considered tank-proof by the Allies. A gamble of epic proportions, but one that would redefine the course of the war. While Allied armies fixated on the Maginot Line, expecting a frontal assault, the main German Panzer Armada smashed through the Ardennes, achieving complete strategic surprise. It was a Blitzkrieg feint on a continental scale, a masterful deception that shattered Allied assumptions and defenses before a shot was even fired in anger at the main attack. Simultaneously, like a viper striking from multiple directions, Blitzkrieg forces erupted into Belgium and the Netherlands, further compounding Allied chaos and paralysis. This multi-pronged assault, reminiscent of Mongol armies dividing to conquer, stretched Allied forces to breaking point, shattering their command structure and any hope of a coherent defense. The Battle of France became a catastrophe for the Allies. Panzer Divisions, unleashed and unstoppable, raced across France, outmaneuvering and encircling entire Allied armies. The Luftwaffe reigned supreme, turning the skies into a German hunting ground. In a matter of weeks, France, a military power of centuries, collapsed. The Low Countries, Belgium and the Netherlands, offered equally futile resistance. Like smaller kingdoms caught in the path of the Mongol juggernaut, their defenses were swept aside with brutal efficiency. Blitzkrieg demonstrated its terrifying power to conquer nations in weeks, not years. In 1941, the insatiable Blitzkrieg machine turned eastward, launching Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union, a gamble even more audacious than the invasion of France. Initially, history seemed to repeat itself. Vast Soviet territories fell, and millions of Red Army soldiers were trapped in colossal encirclements. But the titanic scale of the Soviet Union, its unforgiving climate, and the unyielding resilience of the Red Army began to expose the fatal flaws of Blitzkrieg. Like the Mongol Empire eventually reaching its limits of expansion, Blitzkrieg began to confront challenges it was fundamentally ill-equipped to overcome. Logistics, the Achilles heel of Blitzkrieg, became critically strained. The immense distances devoured men and materiel, and the brutal Soviet resistance ground down the panzer spearheads. The lightning war faltered, then slowed, then became a bloody, grinding war of attrition, the very thing Blitzkrieg was designed to avoid. And finally, the entry of industrial giants like the United States into the war, and the combined might of the Allied coalition, sealed Blitzkrieg's fate. The initial shock had faded, the world had learned to adapt, and the once unstoppable force was now facing a rising tide it could not contain. Blitzkrieg, like the Mongol Empire before it, was a meteor across the landscape of history, a force of nature that burned intensely, but ultimately, for a limited time. Though its era of dominance was finite, its impact on warfare and the world remains indelible. Like the echoes of Mongol conquests still heard across Eurasia, the ghost of Blitzkrieg continues to haunt military doctrine today. In its zenith, Blitzkrieg was breathtakingly effective. It redrew maps, toppled nations, and redefined the very concept of warfare in a few short years. Like the Mongol military machine that seemed invincible in its prime, Blitzkrieg offered a vision of swift, decisive victory that captivated and terrified the world in equal measure. Yet, like all empires, even the most formidable, Blitzkrieg contained the seeds of its own undoing. Like the Mongol Empire, fractured by internal strife and stretched thin by overexpansion, Blitzkrieg's inherent limitations became increasingly apparent as the conflict metastasized. Its very speed contained the seeds of its eventual stagnation. The immense maw of the Eastern Front proved to be Blitzkrieg's graveyard. Just as the vastness of Eastern Europe and Russia swallowed Mongol armies whole, the endless distances and implacable Soviet resistance consumed the Blitzkrieg offensive. The Lightning War became a protracted, bloody stalemate, the antithesis of its core doctrine. But Blitzkrieg's enduring legacy is undeniable. It irrevocably transformed military doctrine, ushering in the age of mobile, combined arms warfare. Like the Mongol cavalry tactics that echoed for centuries, Blitzkrieg's principles of speed, maneuver, and decisive action continued to shape military thinking in the 21st century. Military academies still dissect the Blitzkrieg campaigns, seeking to understand its initial triumphs and ultimate failures. Its emphasis on speed, surprise, and overwhelming force remains a tempting siren song for strategists even today. The ghost of Blitzkrieg still walks the corridors of power and war planning. Yet, history also offers a stark cautionary tale within the Blitzkrieg saga. Its early victories blinded many to its inherent flaws and ethical bankruptcy. Like the Mongol conquests, which brought both cultural exchange and immense destruction, Blitzkrieg was a double-edged sword, a tool of immense power, wielded with devastating consequences. Ultimately, Blitzkrieg stands as a stark lesson in the limitations of even the most revolutionary military doctrines. Adaptability, resilience, and the unpredictable currents of history can erode even the most seemingly unstoppable force. No empire built on speed and aggression, no matter how swift its ascent, can defy the unrelenting tides of war forever. The Blitzkrieg era was a watershed moment in the history of conflict, a brutal demonstration of technology's transformative power on the battlefield. It irrevocably altered the course of World War II and left an enduring imprint on the very nature of modern war. Its lessons, etched in blood and steel, continue to resonate in our world. So, while Blitzkrieg's lightning conquests proved ultimately unsustainable, its thunderous impact on the 20th century continues to echo through the corridors of military history. A chilling testament to humanity's relentless pursuit of decisive victory and the ever-evolving, often brutal, character of warfare itself.